Hello folks, how you doing? Let's see, last video I did, my phone messed up and tilted the video sideways. It somehow wouldn't even let me press record like 10 times, and then eventually it recorded sideways, or so I posted it anyway on YouTube, but it's a sideways video. Be easy to watch on a phone at least, but not on a computer. Although I did watch it on my computer and I had to turn my whole computer sideways. So anyway, in that video, I basically went over the Gobekli Tepe map, Pillar 43 map of America, and I used a different comparison than this one. So this one, I zoom in here on the islands. Yeah, all the islands I zoom in on this one. Whereas on the one I used yesterday, I did not, so they were not super visible. So I'll just go back over, the fundamentals of it. This time right side up. So, this is Pillar 43, an enclosure D, 12,000 years old. It's the pillar, these are circles of pillars like Stonehenge, but as like Stonehenge, the flat part of the pillar faces in to the circle, whereas at Gobekli, the skinny part basically faces in. So, but it's clearly the ancestors of the people who built Stonehenge and other such sites. Very similar concept, and Stonehenge, I guarantee, is the same type of thing. It was maps. All these things were like fundamentally maps. So let's see, I'll try to do this without messing my back up too much. So we have, let's just run through it real quick. We have A is Alaska. It's right up here. So that's this section. They divide the northern coast of America into three kind of identical shapes. These shapes seem to represent caves, and I think it's fundamentally inspired by Hudson Bay and Baffin Island, as Baffin being kind of the roof of this cave. It's a very well-contained sea, and a very wide sea. And yeah, so the and then also these other bays, like especially St. Lawrence Estuary Gulf, and also the bays and seas around Victoria Island there. So yeah, Victoria Island is shaped like a bird. So there you can see shaped like a bird with with like its legs sticking forward and some kind of arms or something up towards its face, and then its butt sticking way out back. So you see that here. You can see the bird head. The head actually is technically a separate island, but it's barely, it's only one little part, very small separation. So yeah, it has like these very long legs, two separate legs, and then its butt sticks way back. So that's, the butt. The legs, I think, are all of this. This thing has one leg and this thing has another leg. And then the kind of hands or something going up towards its face. seems to just be this part right here that's up near the face. So then we have A, B, C is Nunavut. So that's, this area. And then this is also technically like Yukon and Northwest Territories in here somewhere. So I'm not sure if the Yukon and Northwest Territories would be part of, entirely part of this section or also part of this section or divided between. But this is Nunavut over here. And technically the whole thing could be maybe called Nunavut. So then this is the guardian of Nunavut is Baffin Island here. So all the islands are flipped retrograde. They're all flipped backwards. So, I've flipped them all backwards here on the satellite version just to compare it better. But, retrograde maps are very common. I mean, this very much follows the pattern of ancient Egyptian maps of America and other places of Afro-Eurasia where, regions can be sometimes shown as kind of, random sort of shapes, like gates, for instance, in the Egyptian Book of Two Ways. And each region has a gatekeeper usually, and they tend to be coastal islands. So in the Egyptian Book of Two Ways, Baffin Island is the gatekeeper of this region, and this is Newfoundland here, is the gatekeeper of this region. So it's very much the same religion as the Egyptians. So yeah, there's Baffin Island. It has the face, it's some kind of wolf or some kind of animal with a big long face, and then the arm coming under the face. So, the face is this, the arm under the face is this, and then it has a tail coming over it. So the tail is actually, I think all of this is technically separate from Baffin Island, just as the head of this is technically separate from Victoria Island, but it's taken as being part of the same critter. And in those days, they might have been together because the sea level was lower. So yeah, the tail seems to include all this. I'm not sure if it includes, well, actually, this is part of the mainland, I think. The photo cuts off there, but so I think the tail goes to right there. And then we see all this, like, these lines and whatnot up here. So, I think all the lines in here, they relate to the Elysian field tradition, like the field of reeds and all that type of stuff of, ancient infernology. That America, the underworld, was always often referred to as like a field. So yeah, that's this one, and it kind of has a little leg in the back that's scrunched up that I think can be accounted for with some of this stuff, but it's hard to see there. And so yeah, it is guarding this roof of this cave, which is Hudson Bay, but it also is the roof of the cave. And so that's a tricky thing they do in these type of maps as well, where the same thing can have multiple avatars. Then E is Quebec, and F, the gatekeeper, as I said, is Newfoundland. And to some extent, this configuration can be seen as somewhat representative of all of Canada and the whole northern area, where, you know, the cave is here, and then the you know, the rock or hill like extends eastward here, and then on top of the ledge is the gatekeeper being Newfoundland. So in that sense, Newfoundland is the gatekeeper potentially of this whole region. But, you know, it depends where you're selling from. If you're selling from Greenland, then Baffin is often the gatekeeper of the region. So, you know, this Newfoundland, he's like a frog, maybe. And it's notable, by the way, that all these lines up here are much more intense on this side than on this side. Like over here, there's not very intense lines. There's a little bit kind of something, but it really starts right here with like the tail and whatnot. And like the line connected to the tail may actually, you know, relate to the mainland that connects to the tail, because this is flipped around. But let's just say that there's a bunch of islands, like little islands, like all these Arctic islands that are all north of and between and around Victoria Island and Baffin Island. Because, yeah, these are the, you know, this is the regular version, and then these are the zoomed in versions. So this guy is right here. This one's right here, and this one's right here. And so, yeah, I think those, you know, plants or whatever represent all these islands, and that's why you don't see as much of that over near Newfoundland, which doesn't have so many of those islands. So Newfoundland, yeah, is like a frog or something. So it's like, this is the head, or I don't know, it's some kind of animal with like little arms and roundish head. I mean, I don't know. So this seems to be the head, and then these are the two arms. You know, you can kind of see that this arm is slightly longer than that arm, which is certainly true. But they don't really account for this peninsula on it, so I'm guessing that he's kind of shown in a relaxed state, and then this is him like jumping with one foot. So that's maybe why he's a frog. I think frogs can sometimes jump with one foot out or something like that. So yeah, and it could be that, you know, that these, or it seems that these caves, like the hole in the top, are the bays. So technically, you know, that bay is this one, this bay is that one, that bay is the bays that are created by Victoria Island. And in all the three cases, the roof of the cave, the roof of the bay, is primarily or largely composed of the gatekeeper itself. Victoria Island here, creating multiple seas or gulfs or whatever around there. Baffin creating, you know, the mother of all bays, and then Newfoundland helping, or it doesn't create this bay, but it's is the roof of it, kind of, and then Newfoundland is the roof of this very large St. Lawrence Gulf of St. Lawrence, which is like, you know, an entrance into the gate, directly into the Great Lakes. So it really guards that region too. So yeah, it's exactly like the Egyptian system of gatekeepers, and just pretty universal ancient system of cosmology. So that's F. G is this bird's head here. So it's part of the mainland because you can see it's connected to this other bird by like all these designs. Whereas some of these ones are just islands because they're just free standing, free floating. And so yeah, this one, some kind of bird with a long, let's say it's a flamingo. Looks like kind of a flamingo. So that's, its head is Delmarva Peninsula, or its beak is Delmarva Peninsula, which is a contraction of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. Creates the Chesapeake Bay, which is a major bay as well. And then the back of its head is delineated by the western Pennsylvania Appalachian Mountains. And as shown here, more or less starting right behind there is the Great Lakes. So they show the Great Lakes as this series of just squares. Similarly, like in Egyptian maps, lakes are just shown as circles. That's well recognized by Egyptologists. So yeah, that's the Great Lakes. But and then also, of course, its long legs of this flamingo or crane or whatever it is Florida, Floridian Peninsula, one of the most distinctive features of the American coast, of North America, of the whole Americas. It's one of the most distinctive features. I mean, the whole Gulf of Mexico. So then G. All right, I forgot my alphabet, but I guess it's HI, right? Okay, yeah. So the Great Lakes, then IJ. So J is the wing of this other mainland bird. So this bird, its head is New Orleans here. So, it's it has the one, arguably like the more important wing, or the more important in this avatar wing, is like the Yucatan, which is holding Scorpion Reef as the sun, and as the soul, and as an egg, and as the disembodied head of this person, this dude. So yeah, that Scorpion Reef is actually right here, kind of just a little bit off the coast of the Yucatan. So I just expanded it like they did. But this seems to be its other arm. It's kind of back arm, or I guess right arm. So it's significantly smaller. This is the Olympic Peninsula. This is where Seattle is. This is where Vancouver City is. This is Vancouver Island. This is the Salish Sea. So it's significantly smaller than the Yucatan Peninsula, but it's fairly similar shape. So, that was an important consideration for, the ancients, was similar shapes and things. Like the Easter Island, Rapa Nui, was named after another similarly shaped island called Rapa. But that's a common practice throughout ancient cosmology, is naming things and associating things based on, associating geography based on similarly shaped geography. And plus, this is just like the biggest bay up here that, I mean, it is a major, like this, compared to the San Francisco Bay, this is probably like 10 or 100 times bigger or something. So it is a major feature. And here they just show it without Vancouver Island in it. So I think that Vancouver Island is shown as another critter just under the wing, which, there's a, like, you can see like a little something like on some photos, but the Turkish government won't excavate, or the billionaire, World Economic Forum people that run the site won't excavate, so they won't find out what's underneath those rocks on there. But I guarantee it includes an avatar of Vancouver Island, because Vancouver Island is a very huge, major coastal gatekeeper. And so, yeah, and then this kind of waterway through here delineates it, and that's where Seattle is and everything. So it's basically all of Washington State is this wing. So then that's the major feature of the West Coast, other, south of Alaska, other than Baja California, which I can guarantee is also some kind of critter behind this guy or this person or this bird with necklaces on or whatever. But again, they won't excavate it, so can only guess what kind of god, what kind of animal or whatever Baja is represented as. Probably like a snake or something. So yeah, then we have the other wing, the Yucatan, and all these lines on the neck of the bird are actual bayous in Louisiana. Like, I should have, to really show that, I would have had to include like a further zoom in of like a little further down on the bayous of Louisiana. But you can kind of see like one or two of them here that are probably the top two of those necklaces or whatever they are. And then he has like two eyes on one side of his head. One is just a hole like the other eyes, and one is a hole surrounded by a circle. So the regular one is this. You can't really see it well, but it's Lake Pontchartrain. It's a big lake right here. And then the one surrounded by a circle, I think, is this round peninsula surrounded by water that is then surrounded by this long sandbar that delineates the head, separates it from the Gulf of Mexico. And this is a normal, I think this god represents all of North America to an extent. And it makes sense because this is where the whole Mississippi exits straight on the beak. Probably partly man-made, like the fact that this whole river would just go straight, orderly line down a little beak and then come out the end. Probably an ancient canal. All right, my phone might be about to cut me off, but anyway, so M, this is his belly, Honduras and Nicaragua. N, his feet are Costa Rica and Panama, yeah. And then O is Scorpion Reef. P is where the fuck is P? Is Hispaniola. Q is Cuba. Has a little beak coming out there.